Lena arrived at the academy with one bag and no one waiting for her. The transport ship had carried 43 cadets from different worlds, and when the doors opened, every one of them stepped out with someone they knew. A partner. A teammate. A fellow soldier from the same planet. Lena stepped out alone, and the cold air of the station hit her face like a warning. Galactic Training Academy Vorrath was not a pretty place. It was a large, gray structure built into the side of a dead moon, with long corridors that smelled like metal and recycled air. The walls were thick. The lights were harsh. Everything about it said that this was not a place built for comfort. It was built for making soldiers. Lena stood in the entry hall and looked around. She was shorter than almost every cadet around her. Some of them were twice her height. Some had 4 arms. Some had no eyes that she could see, but she had the feeling they were watching her anyway. She kept her face calm and picked up her bag. The intake officer, a tall gray-skinned being with 3 fingers on each hand, scanned her registration and paused. Human, it said. Not a question. Just a word. Yes, Lena said. The officer looked at her for a moment longer than necessary, then handed her a room assignment card and moved on. Lena walked down the corridor toward her quarters, and she felt eyes on her the whole way. Her room was small and plain, a cot, a locker, a narrow window that looked out onto the surface of the moon. She set her bag down and sat on the edge of the cot. She was 22 years old. She had trained for this for 4 years before her application was even accepted. She had passed every test, cleared every physical requirement, and earned her place here the same way everyone else had. None of that seemed to matter much to the beings in the hull. The first full day of training started before the artificial lights had even finished brightening. The cadets were taken to a large open floor and told to run. The course was designed for axillary biology, long strides, heavy gravity compensation, fast interval bursts. Lena ran it anyway. She finished last. When she crossed the line, breathing hard and sweating through her shirt, a group of 3 cadets near the far wall laughed. They did not bother to keep their voices low. The human is still moving, one of them said. I thought it would stop halfway. Humans are soft, said another. I read about them. They break easily. Lena walked past them without turning her head. The days that followed were not much better. Every drill, every course, every meal in the common hall was a reminder that she was different. Not just different, unwanted. The Academy had accepted her because the agreement between Earth and the Galactic Union required it. But an agreement on paper did not change how the other cadets looked at her. She was something that did not belong here. A mistake that had been made official. She kept to herself. She trained hard. She slept when she could and woke up before anyone called her. She did not complain and she did not ask for help. She had decided before she ever left Earth that she would not give anyone a reason to say she had folded. It was on the 6th day that she first noticed Soren. He was sitting alone at the far end of the common hall, eating something pale and flat from a small container. He was Velhari. She recognized the species from the orientation files. 6 limbs, 4 of which he used as arms when needed, though right now 2 were folded behind him and 2 rested on the table. His skin was a soft gray-green. His eyes were large and dark and calm. He was taller than Lena by a full head, but there was nothing threatening about the way he held himself. He looked, more than anything else, like someone who was used to being left alone. A group of auxiliary cadets walked past his table and one of them knocked his food container off the edge without stopping or looking back. It hit the floor and the pale flat food scattered across the ground. The auxiliary cadets kept walking. A few of them laughed. Soren looked down at the food on the floor. Then he looked up at the cadets walking away. He did not say anything. He simply bent down, picked up the container, placed it back on the table, and went back to sitting quietly. Lena watched this. Then she picked up her own tray, walked across the hall, and sat down across from him. He looked at her with his large dark eyes. He did not seem surprised. He did not seem pleased, either. He simply waited. "Your food is on the floor," Lena said. "I noticed," he said. His voice was low and even. "Does that happen often?" He considered the question. "Often enough," he said. Lena nodded. She opened her own food container and started eating. Soren watched her for a moment, then did the same. They did not speak again for the rest of the meal, but when Lena stood to leave, Soren gave her a small nod. She nodded back. After that, it became a quiet habit. They did not plan it. They did not discuss it. But each day in the common hall, Lena sat across from Soren, and Soren was already there waiting, or arrived a few minutes after her. They talked a little more each time. Not about feelings or fears, neither of them was built for that kind of conversation. They talked about the training. About the drills. About which instructors explained things clearly and which ones seemed to enjoy watching cadets struggle. Soren was brilliant. He had a way of breaking down the logic of every exercise, of seeing the structure underneath the chaos. He explained things in a clear, careful way that helped Lena understand what she was supposed to be doing, not just physically, but tactically. In return, Lena helped him with the physical drills. The Velhari were not built for combat training. Their strength was in their minds. But the academy required every cadet to meet the same physical benchmarks, and Soren was falling behind. They trained together in the evenings, after the formal sessions ended. The lower corridors were mostly empty by then, and they used the space without anyone watching or commenting. It was not a loud friendship. There were no big moments, no long speeches. It was built out of small things. Shared meals, quiet evenings, the steady presence of someone who did not look at you like you were a problem. On the 14th night, they sat together near the observation window at the end of Corridor 7, looking out at the surface of the moon. The stars beyond were still and cold. "Do you think they will ever accept us here?" Soren asked. Lena looked out the window for a long moment. "Probably not," she said. "But that is not why we came." Soren was quiet. Then he nodded slowly. Outside, the stars did not move. But somewhere in the distance, something was coming, something neither of them could see yet, but that was already on its way. Grax did not hide the fact that he hated them. He was Axthari, and among the Axthari, there was no value in hiding what you felt. You said what you meant. You showed what you intended. And what Grax intended, from the very first week, was to make Lena and Soren understand that they did not belong at Vorrath. He was big even by Axthari standards. Broad across the chest, with thick plated skin that ran from his shoulders down to his forearms. He moved through the academy like someone who had already decided he owned it, and in many ways, he did. His scores were near the top of every ranking. His family had sent warriors to this academy for 3 generations. The instructors knew his name before he arrived. Other cadets moved out of his way in the corridors without being asked. He had 2 cadets who followed him everywhere. A lean, fast Axthari named Breck, and a heavier one named Vor, who rarely spoke but always seemed to be smiling at something unpleasant. Together, the 3 of them filled every room they walked into with a kind of pressure that most cadets had learned to simply avoid. Lena and Soren did not avoid them. They did not seek them out either. They simply continued their routine, meals, training, evening drills in the lower corridor, and that, somehow, made things worse. Grax had expected them to shrink. Most cadets who were targeted found quieter corners of the academy to disappear into. But the human girl kept showing up to every session, kept running every drill, kept finishing even when she finished last. And the Velhari kept sitting in the common hall, kept studying his training files, kept existing in spaces where Grax felt he should not have to look at him. It annoyed Grax in a way he found difficult to explain. It felt like being ignored. And Grax did not accept being ignored. The comments started first. Small things, said loudly enough to be heard. When Lena ran the obstacle course, Grax would watch from the side and say things to Breck and Vor that carried across the room. When Soren struggled with the combat drills, the three of them would stand nearby and observe with open amusement, as if watching something that was trying very hard to be something it was not. Lena kept her eyes forward. Soren kept his expression calm. Neither of them gave Grax the reaction he was looking for. So the comments became actions. Equipment left in Lena's assigned locker would be moved or damaged before morning sessions. Soren's study materials were twice thrown across the corridor when he was not there to see it happen. Food was knocked from his tray in the common hall again, not once, but several times over 2 weeks, always by someone in Grax's circle, always with the same casual cruelty that pretended it was an accident. Lena reported nothing. Soren reported nothing. They both understood that reporting it would change little and cost them more than it cost the ones doing it. But it was getting harder to absorb. One evening, Lena arrived at their usual training spot in the lower corridor and Soren was not there. She waited. She ran through her own drills. She waited again. After an hour, she packed up and went back toward the main quarters, telling herself he had simply stayed in his room. She found out the next morning. One of the younger cadets, a quiet Dravani girl who had sometimes nodded to Lena in the halls, stopped her near the medical bay entrance and told her in a low voice that Soren had been found in sub-corridor 12 the night before. He had been found by a maintenance worker, alone on the ground, 2 of his lower limbs badly damaged. Lena did not ask who had done it. She already knew. She walked into the medical bay and found Soren lying on a wide flat bed designed for Velhari bodies. 2 of his limbs were wrapped in medical support frames, the kind used when bones had been fractured in multiple places. His face was turned toward the ceiling. When he heard her come in, he moved his eyes to look at her but did not turn his head. She sat down in the chair beside his bed and said nothing. The medical officer, a small efficient being with pale blue skin, came to the doorway and explained that the injuries were serious but not permanent. Soren would recover. But recovery would take weeks, and during that time he would not be able to participate in any physical training. His place at the academy would be reviewed depending on how far behind he fell. The medical officer left. The room was quiet. Soren looked at the ceiling for a long time. Then he said, very quietly, "They waited until I was alone. Sub-corridor 12 has no monitoring equipment." They knew that. Lena said nothing. "There were 3 of them," Soren said. "I could not see their faces clearly. But I recognized the way one of them moved." Lena looked at her hands. "You do not have to say anything," Soren said. "I know you already know." The room stayed quiet. Outside in the corridor, 2 cadets walked past talking about tomorrow's drills. Their voices faded. Somewhere in the medical bay, a piece of equipment made a soft rhythmic sound. Lena sat with Soren for a long time. She did not offer words of comfort because she did not have the kind of words that would have meant anything right now. She simply stayed. That was the only thing she knew how to give him in that moment, and she gave it fully. At some point Soren's eyes closed. His breathing slowed into something close to sleep, though not quite. His body was working hard just to manage the pain. Lena watched him for a while longer. She looked at the support frames around his limbs. She looked at the stillness of him, this being who had never raised his voice at anyone, who had never done a single thing to deserve what had been done to him, who had come to this academy with his quiet brilliance and his careful ways and had asked for nothing except the chance to be here. She stood up slowly. She straightened her jacket. She picked up the small bag she had brought. She looked at Soren one more time. At his closed eyes, at the damaged limbs held still in their frames. Then she turned and walked out of the medical bay. The corridor outside was bright and empty. Her footsteps made no sound on the hard floor. Her face, if anyone had been there to see it, would have told them very little. It was not angry. It was not sad. It was not the face of someone who was afraid. It was still. Completely still. The kind of still that comes not from calm, but from a decision that has already been made and does not need to be spoken out loud. She walked back toward the main quarters. She had things to think about. And she did not intend to take long thinking about them. Lena did not sleep that night. She lay on her cot in the dark and stared at the ceiling and let her mind go through everything slowly and carefully. Not with anger. Anger was loud and loud things made mistakes. She thought clearly, the way she had taught herself to think when things got hard. Step by step. Fact by fact. The facts were simple. Soren was in the medical bay with 2 broken limbs. Grax had done it. The Academy's reporting system would investigate, find nothing clear, and close the case without consequence. That was how these things worked here. She had watched it happen to others in the weeks since she arrived. The strong did what they wanted and the system moved slowly around them like water around a rock. She was not going to wait for the system. By the time the artificial lights began to brighten the next morning, she had already made her decision. She got up, washed her face, and put on her training jacket. She did not eat breakfast. She walked directly to the administrative wing at the far end of the Academy's main corridor and stopped in front of the door marked Commandant Seleth. She knocked twice. A voice from inside told her to enter. Commandant Seleth was a tall, thin being from a species Lena had not encountered before her arrival at Vorrath. She had pale silver skin and 4 eyes arranged in a slight curve across her face, each one a deep amber color. She was old, that much was clear, and she had the kind of stillness that came from decades of watching young soldiers make every possible kind of mistake. She was sitting behind a wide flat desk covered in data screens when Lena walked in. She looked at Lena without surprise. Without much expression at all. "Cadet," she said. "Commandant," Lena said. "I am here to file an open floor challenge." Seleth was quiet for a moment. "Against whom?" she said. It was not quite a question. "Cadet Grax," Lena said. "Ax-3. Senior rank." Something moved behind Seleth's amber eyes. Not shock exactly. Something more like a careful attention, the way a person looks when they hear something they were not expecting and are deciding what to do with it. "You understand what an open floor trial means," Seleth said. "Yes," Lena said. "A formal combat match in the main arena. Sanctioned by the Academy. Fought until one side cannot continue. The result goes on record. And you understand Cadet Grax's ranking?" "Yes." Seleth looked at her for a long moment. "Cadet Lena," she said slowly. "You are ranked in the lower third of your intake group. Grax is ranked 2nd overall in the entire Academy. He has won 4 open floor trials without being seriously challenged." "I understand," Lena said. "This is not a decision I can talk you out of." "No," Lena said. Seleth held her gaze for another moment. Then she reached across her desk and pressed 2 fingers to a data screen. "The challenge is filed," she said. "The arena will be prepared for the day after tomorrow. Standard rules apply." She paused. "Is there anything else?" "No," Lena said. "Thank you, Commandant." She turned and walked out. She had been in the office for less than 4 minutes. By midday, everyone knew. Lena did not know exactly how word spread so fast inside Vorrath, but it always did. The Academy had over 300 cadets and the corridors between them carried information faster than any official announcement. By the time the afternoon training session began, every cadet she passed was looking at her differently than they had the day before. Not with respect. Not yet. More with the expression people wear when they are watching someone walk towards something they believe will hurt them badly. In the training hall, she heard pieces of conversations cut short when she entered. She caught fragments. The human girl. Grax. The arena. Most of them said some version of the same thing. That it would be over fast. That it was a waste of scheduled arena time. That someone should have stopped her from filing before she embarrassed herself and her species in front of the entire academy. She ignored all of it and ran her drills. Grax found her that afternoon near the equipment storage corridor. He came with Breck and Vor, as he always did, and he stood in the corridor with his arms crossed and looked at her with an expression she had not seen on his face before. It was not quite anger. It was something that looked almost like amusement, but underneath it there was something else. A sharpness. A calculation. I heard what you filed, he said. Lena looked at him. Good, she said. You understand I am going to hurt you, he said. Badly. In front of everyone. You are going to try, she said. He stared at her. Behind him, Breck made a short sound that was almost a laugh. Vor said nothing, but his expression shifted slightly. Grax leaned forward just a little. Why, he said. Tell me why you are doing this. You cannot win. You know you cannot win. So why? Lena looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, very simply, you already know why. She walked past him down the corridor and did not look back. She spent the rest of that day and all of the next in preparation. Not in the training hall where others could watch. In the lower corridors, in the quiet spaces, moving through everything she knew. She had grown up in a city on Earth where safety was not guaranteed and where learning to handle yourself was not optional. She had trained under 3 different instructors before the age of 18, one who had taught her striking, one who had taught her holds and ground control, and one older woman who had taught her something harder to name. Patience in violence. How to be hurt and keep thinking. How to make a bigger opponent's strength work against them. She had not talked about any of this at the academy. There had been no reason to. But she had carried it with her every day since she arrived, the way you carry something you know you will eventually need. On the morning of the fight, she woke early, ate a small meal, and sat quietly in her room for a while. She thought about Soren in the medical bay. She thought about his broken limbs and his calm voice and the way he had said, I know you already know. Then she stood up, put on her training gear, and walked toward the arena. The main arena at Vorrath was a large circular space with high walls and a smooth stone floor. It could hold the entire academy population along the viewing ledges, and today it was full. Every cadet. Most of the instructors. A few administrative staff who had never been seen at an open floor trial before. The noise when she entered was not cheering. It was the loud unsettled sound of a crowd that had come to watch something they had already decided the ending of. She walked to the center of the floor and stood there. She did not look at the crowd. She did not look for friendly faces. She simply stood and waited, her breathing slow and her hands loose at her sides. She had been preparing for this moment for a very long time. And she was ready. Grax entered the arena laughing. It was a real laugh, not a performed one. He walked through the fighters' entrance with Breck and Vor just behind him, and he was saying something to them that made all 3 of them laugh again just before he stepped onto the floor. He was not wearing anything extra. No additional protection. No special gear. Just his standard training outfit, as if this were a casual morning drill and not a formal challenge match. That told Lena everything she needed to know about how seriously he was taking this. He walked to the center of the floor and looked at her. He was a full head taller and significantly wider. His plated skin alone gave him a layer of natural protection that no human body had. He had 4 inches of reach on her in every direction. He had won 4 open floor trials, each one against cadets who were better ranked than Lena. He looked her up and down once, the way someone looks at something they are about to move out of their way. "Last chance," he said. "Walk out now. I will let you." Lena said nothing. He smiled. "All right," he said. The signal tone rang out across the arena. The crowd on the viewing ledges went quiet in the way crowds do when something is about to begin. Grax moved first. He came in fast and direct, the axe 3-way, straight force, maximum pressure, designed to end things before they had a chance to develop. His first strike came down hard toward her left shoulder, meant to stagger her sideways and open her up for whatever came next. Lena was not there when it landed. She had already moved, not backward, but to the side and slightly forward, angling away from the strike and letting it pass close enough that she felt the air of it against her arm. She used his forward momentum to push slightly at his elbow as he came through, not hard, just enough to pull him a half step further than he intended. He caught himself quickly. He was good. She had known he would be good. He turned and looked at her. The smile was still there, but something behind it had shifted slightly. He came again. This time a lower strike, faster, testing. Lena took it on her forearm rather than her body, rolled with it, and moved away to his weaker side. She did not counter. Not yet. She was reading him. Every fighter had a pattern and she needed more information before she spent energy on anything offensive. He tried 3 more times in quick succession, each strike a little different from the last. The crowd was watching quietly now. They had expected something fast and ugly. They were getting something they did not have a word for yet. On the 4th exchange, Lena hit him for the first time. It was not a big strike. It was short and precise, aimed at the joint where his right arm connected to his shoulder plate, a spot she had noticed during the 2nd exchange when his arm came up. The axe 3 plating was strong across the chest and forearms, but the joints were softer. She had read about axe 3 biology in the academy files during her first week, the same files most cadets never bothered with. He felt it. She saw it in the way he pulled that arm back slightly without meaning to. Good, she thought. And she moved away again. The crowd shifted. A low sound ran around the viewing ledges. Not cheering. Just a change in the quality of the silence. Grax stopped smiling. He came at her harder now, with real intent, and this time he caught her. A heavy strike landed across her left side and she felt something compress sharply, not broken, but badly enough that her next breath came in shorter than she wanted. She moved back. He followed and hit her again, this time catching her across the upper arm and spinning her half around. She went down on one knee. The crowd made a noise. From somewhere above she heard Breck shout something sharp and satisfied. Lena put her hand on the floor and breathed. 1 breath. 2. She counted the pain the way her second instructor had taught her. Not feeling it, not fighting it, just counting it and putting it to one side. She knew where it was. She would deal with it later. She stood back up. Grax was watching her with a new expression. The laughter was completely gone now. He was looking at her the way a fighter looks at something that is behaving in a way they do not fully understand. She came at him this time. She did not try to match his strength. She never tried to do that. She went low and close, inside the range where his size became less useful, and she worked the joints. The right shoulder again. Then the left knee. A sharp controlled strike at the side of it that made his leg buckle for just a moment. Then back to the shoulder. She was not trying to finish him. She was taking him apart one small piece at a time, the way you dismantle something complicated, carefully, in the right order. He hit her twice more during this. Hard. Real damage. Her lower lip split open and she tasted blood, and a strike to her ribs made the left side of her body scream at her. She kept moving. She kept working. The crowd was completely silent now. Not the silence of boredom. The silence of people watching something they had not expected and do not know how to respond to. Even the instructors along the upper ledge were still. Grax was slowing down. It was subtle at first, a fraction of a second longer between his movements, his strikes arriving just slightly less sharp than before. The knee was bothering him. The shoulder was bothering him. He was a powerful fighter, but he had never been in a match that went this long without resolving, and his body was telling him the cost of that. Lena was hurting. She was hurting badly. But she had been taught by someone who understood something important, that the human body, pushed hard enough and trained long enough, could carry pain further than almost anything else in nature. Not because humans were special. Because they had spent thousands of years having no other choice. She pressed forward. The end came in the 14th minute. Grax swung wide, his shoulder finally failing him at the wrong moment, and Lena went under it and took him down with a controlled trip and her full remaining weight behind it. He hit the arena floor hard. The sound of it echoed off the walls. He tried to rise. His arms pushed against the floor and he got halfway up before his knee gave and he went back down. He tried a second time. Got a little further. Could not hold it. The third time he did not get as far as the second. He stayed down. The arena was so quiet that Lena could hear her own breathing. She stood over Grax and looked at him on the floor for exactly 1 second. Not with satisfaction. Not with anger. With nothing at all. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. She did not look at the crowd. She did not look at Breck or Vor. She did not raise her hand or make any gesture. She walked across the arena floor with blood on her face and her left side on fire, and she went through the exit door and let it close behind her. She stood alone in the corridor outside, put her back against the wall, and slowly lowered herself to the floor. She sat there for a while, breathing carefully. Inside the arena, nobody spoke for a very long time. The academy was different the next morning. Lena felt it before she could explain it. It was not one big thing. It was many small things, the kind that add up quietly until you cannot ignore them anymore. When she walked down the main corridor toward the medical wing, 2 HFY cadets who had always taken up the full width of the hallway moved to the side without being asked. Not quickly, not with any show of it. They simply moved. A Dravani cadet she had never spoken to looked at her as she passed and gave her a small nod. An instructor she recognized from the combat drills watched her walk by and said nothing, but his expression was different from what it had been before. Nobody cheered. Nobody made a moment of it. But something had shifted in the walls of this place, the way air shifts before weather changes. Quiet and real and impossible to put back the way it was. She had slept badly. Her ribs were wrapped tight under her jacket and her left arm had been treated in the medical bay the previous evening by a nurse who had said very little and worked very carefully. Her lip had closed overnight but was still swollen at one corner. Moving too fast in any direction reminded her of exactly what Grax had landed on her during the match. She did not move fast. She walked steadily and she kept her face the way she always kept it, forward, calm, giving nothing away. She was halfway to the medical wing when a junior staff officer stopped her in the corridor and told her that Commandant Seleth was requesting her presence in the administrative office. Not ordering. Requesting. Lena noted the difference. She changed direction and went. Seleth was standing when Lena entered, which was different from before. She was at the wide window behind her desk, looking out at the surface of the moon, and she turned when she heard the door. She looked at Lena for a moment, at the wrapped ribs visible at the edge of her jacket, at the swollen lip, at the way she was holding her left arm slightly closer to her body than the right. "Sit down," Seleth said, and her voice was different too. Not softer exactly, but without the careful distance it usually carried. Lena sat. Seleth came around to the front of her desk and leaned against it. She looked at Lena with her 4 amber eyes and was quiet for a moment before she spoke. I did not call you here to discuss disciplinary action, she said. The match was legal. The outcome was recorded. That matter is closed. She paused. I called you here because I want to understand something. Lena waited. I have commanded this academy for 11 years, Seleth said. I have watched hundreds of open-floor trials. I have seen strong cadets lose and weak cadets surprise me on occasion. She stopped. I have never seen what I watched yesterday. And I have been trying since last night to find the right way to explain it using what I know about human biology and training records. She looked at Lena directly. I cannot explain it. So I am asking you instead. The room was quiet. Outside the window the moon's surface was pale and still. Lena thought for a moment about how to say it. Not because she did not know the answer. She had known the answer for a long time. She was thinking about how to say it in a way that was honest without being complicated, because the truth of it was actually very simple. Humans are not the strongest species, she said. We are not the fastest. We do not have plated skin or 4 arms or biology built for combat. She paused. What we have is something different. We are built to carry things. Pain. Loss. Grief. Fear. We can feel all of those things fully and keep moving anyway. Not because we do not feel them, we feel them more than most, I think. But because somewhere in our history we had to learn that feeling something and being stopped by it are not the same thing. Seleth was listening with complete attention. Most species, Lena continued, when they are hurt enough, when the pain reaches a certain level, the body and the mind agree to stop. It is a reasonable response. It is the smart response in most situations. She looked at her hands for a moment. Humans learned a different response. We learn to hurt and continue. To grieve and continue. To be afraid and continue. It is not something we chose. It is something that was built into us over a very long time because we had no other option. She looked back up at Seleth. Grax is a better fighter than me by almost every measure. But he has never had to learn how to keep going when everything in him is saying stop. Yesterday, I had to learn that a long time ago. The room stayed quiet for a moment after she finished. Seleth looked at her for a long time. Then she turned slightly and looked out the window. When she spoke again her voice was careful and measured, the way it was when she was thinking through something serious. The Academy's training design, she said slowly, was built around Axtheory physical models. It has been that way for 40 years. She paused. I think it may be time to reconsider that. She looked back at Lena. That is all I needed. Thank you, Cadet. Lena stood, gave a small respectful nod, and left. She walked the rest of the way to the medical wing without hurrying. The corridors were busier now as the morning training sessions approached, and she moved through them the same way she always had, steadily, without making anything of herself. But the space around her was different. There was room in it now that had not been there before. She pushed open the door to the medical bay and went inside. Soren was awake. He was sitting up slightly on his wide flat bed, his support frame still around 2 of his limbs, a data screen resting across his upper arms that he had clearly been reading from. When he saw her come through the door he set the screen aside and watched her walk toward him. She pulled the chair close to his bed and sat down. He looked at her face. At the swollen lip. At the way she was holding herself. His large dark eyes moved across all of it slowly and carefully, the way he did everything. I heard, he said quietly. Everyone heard. Lena nodded. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, you did not have to do that. Lena looked at him. At his wrapped limbs held still in their frames. At his calm steady face that had never once looked at her with anything except simple and honest regard. She thought about the corridor where they had first spoken. The common hall. The evenings in the lower corridor running drills together under the harsh lights. The observation window and the cold stars beyond it. Yes, I did, she said. Soren looked at her for a long moment. Something moved behind his dark eyes, not quite an emotion she had a name for, but close to the thing that exists between people who have been through something hard together and come out the other side still standing beside each other. He did not argue. He simply nodded, very slowly, and looked back at the window beside his bed where a pale strip of stars was visible at the edge of the moon's horizon. They sat together in the quiet of the medical bay for a long time. Neither of them spoke again. There was nothing left that needed to be said. Outside, the academy continued its day. Drills ran. Cadets trained. Instructors called out corrections across wide training floors. The ordinary life of the place moved forward as it always did. But something inside it had changed permanently. Something that could not be undone or ignored or explained away. A human girl had walked into an arena where nobody expected her to walk out standing, and she had walked out standing. And the galaxy, in its own quiet way, had taken note.